Good morning from York Racecourse. I'm Darren Baldwin, and today I'm sitting in the other chair. It gives me great pleasure to introduce a very good friend of mine, which many of you may well know, Paul Robinson, ex-Tottenham, Blackburn, Leeds and England footballer. And today we're going to speak all about football and groundsmanship and the relationship between both. And I guess that brings me on to one of probably the most difficult things in your career, and one that I know where I was at the time, and I know that it was absolutely not a mistake of yours, but you have to then take the criticism, or you get a portion with blame, and I'm alluding to Croatia in 2008.
The bubble.
The bubble.
I always said if I ever do an autobiography, which I probably won't, but if I ever did, I'll call it the bubble.
The bubble.
The bubble, yeah. Because that affected me so much through the rest of my career. I mean, I was never the same goalkeeper for 18 months, 2 years after that. And there's nothing that I could have done about it. The backlash, the impact that the press had, the criticism that you got. And you're there thinking, well, what would I do differently? I'd probably still, what is it with the coin in golf? Swing and a miss. That's exactly what it is. And I'd probably still do exactly the same thing. But if the ball's not there, you can't hit it. But yeah, the pitches are different. I mean, now I don't know if they still do, but the Deso pitches that they weave the artificial grass through, there's a solid base. You would never, ever get a divot that size in a pitch these days because of the way that the pitches are constructed and the way that the pitches are put together. And actually, looking back in hindsight, it was probably my own divot from where I was taking goal kicks. Because with your left foot, your planting foot, I could feel myself sinking. So, like you say, with the Deso, with a solid base, you don't get that. You get a little paw print, a little imprint. Whereas that, you were getting proper divots. It was like an old, like a school pitch.
Yeah, we're actually sinking about 3 inches deep.
And you can feel it. You can feel, I mean, no, you don't feel soil now. There's no soil in the pitches as such. They're obviously, you're going to tell me different. There's soil there.
Yeah.
But actually, it was like your garden. Or it was like, it was a good, don't get me wrong, it was a good quality pitch to look at. But actually, it was soft. And you'll tell me differently, but the Deso pitches, the top is like that, so you're not going to get much thing. But that, you felt as though the pitch was that deep. So when your foot was going into it, you could feel the turf move. And we've seen it with penalties before. I think Bex had a penalty, didn't he? I can't remember where that was. And the turf moved on him. So imagine that turf that's moved on him. You've still got that footprint there, that indent. That's what the ball flipped over on me.
And the difference is, at your end, it cost a goal. And at Bex's end, it was just a missed chance, and no one remembers the missed chances.
Yeah, well, that's what the net's there for, to stop you running for the ball.
You talk about that the pitches these days are all reinforced. Well, and we're talking about the fact that that had a big influence on your career, a heel mark, a bobble. But we look at the pitches in the Euros at the moment, and it's quite obvious that some of those pitches aren't of the reinforced type that we talk about in the Premier League.
The England game, with Carl Walker down the right hand side, wasn't he? I can't remember off the top of my head which game it was, but it was obvious there was a problem with the pitch, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was England-Denmark.
But am I right? Was the roof closed and was the humidity a problem as well? And did that have an effect on the pitch?
And the humidity may be a problem with ball movement, but it wouldn't have been a problem with the firmness of the playing surface.
That won't have affected it, even if the roof was closed. That was had no effect whatsoever.
No, it wouldn't have an effect. But what it would have done from in the perspective of walkers, it wouldn't have had an effect on our soft ears. But the point I want to make there, from a groundsman's perspective, and even from a player, you've left that uncertainty. So Walks has gone down the right wing, he's put his foot down for a cross, it's given way, he's turned his ankle. As it happens, he went down afterwards.
Changed his boots straight after as well, didn't he?
Straight after. And that was where I was alluding with a question on you, whether you ever wore different studs. But I guess from my experience as a goalkeeper, I always wore long studs in the back, long in the middle,
they
and
were
then
either long or even longer. There, that was my. I'd never wear blades or anything. I mean, it was just like me. I'm a dinosaur, and even back then, that's how I was. I was old school even back then.
Just talking about England and what is poignant at the moment with the Euros on, and you've been in many squads and played in 2 major tournaments. How's the boredom when you're there? Because you're away for potentially 3 or 4 weeks. And I know they set up, as I know this from Spurs and the hotel that Tottenham have, they'll set up as like a games room and stuff like that. But how do you alleviate that boredom? What goes on? I mean, I think you've told me before, or I know this, but you're playing snooker. But what else is there? Games.
No, listen. I mean, it's difficult, and it's always been a thing with English players and playing tournament football. And I think in years gone by, we've been guilty of progressing youngsters through to the full squad too quickly. As in, he's a good player, let him train with a full squad; it'll do him more good than getting used to playing tournament football, as in under 18s, under 20s, under 21s. But that's changed now. You see the success that we've had at youth level. Players get experience of playing tournament football because it's completely different. You're away for 4 weeks. You're living with 50 to 100 people that you wouldn't necessarily choose to live with. You get your own room, which is your own little bit of space. Like you say, there's the games rooms and different things. Listen, Sven tried it in 2006 and he got a lot of criticism for it. And you can understand why, the whole WAG situation in Baden-Baden. I mean, we were lifting up the papers every morning or reading the papers, whatever it was, and just wondering who Doris was going to be on the front page of the next day's papers. Somebody else's missus was on the front page of the papers. It backfired on him massively. But when you actually unpack it, you can see what he was doing. You looked at the years gone by. Why haven't England been successful? Why are they not successful at tournament football? Is it that they're bored? Is it that they're away from family, friends, loved ones, etc.? So he thought, in his wisdom at the time, he would hotel 2 miles away from the players, lovely little town, wives, girlfriends, mums, dads, families, keep them close. So the players have got that in touching distance. And on days off, it was nice to drop in and out of if you did it properly. But I mean, it was used and abused to the level where it was front page of the national newspapers every day. And that's the hard thing to do, is the tournament is to fill your own spare time. But now there's that much analysis. They'll have defenders meetings, midfielders meetings, unit meetings. There'll be a spa, there'll be a golf course, listen, it's not a hard thing. Don't ever feel sorry for a footballer. It's not a bad life.
No, I'm sure not. I just remember back from those, I think it was 2004, 2006. I remember before the World Cup, we had a game of snooker, an evening playing snooker, and we would have been, I would say, bang average if we were knocking in 4 or 5 balls.
I come back and I cleaned you up, you mean? Is that
yeah, that's exactly what I'm going to.
Well, that's one good thing from the World Cup. I come back and I was good at snooker, is that what you say?
Yeah, so Robbo would have breaks of about 18, 21, 27 like me, and then coming back, and I just felt like, I think Len Ganley's a famous referee of the past. All I was doing was walking around the table picking balls out. You're knocking in breaks of 40, 50, 60. Yeah. And I mean, that was
Benfleet,
3 weeks away.
Like it, had they?
Riley's at Benfleet. Never had breaks of 60 on the table. But no, joking aside, that was great fun. But I do know as well on what England and what it means. And also you alluded to it there now, and the modern games. And I know from having worked at Tottenham and the different teams staying, obviously in the last Euros that were in England, we had England, Denmark and Italy for the final. And all of what you've just alluded to is obviously very true. Team walks, team meetings and all what goes on. So the game's different now. And social media and I guess the way things are analysed now. And the backroom teams. I think when I first started at Tottenham before, we've talked about I had a team of 1. I've left with a team of 45. And the backroom team in professional football now used to be a team of manager, kit man, masseur, not even a masseur,
more staff than players now. More staff than players.
And that's why they take 2 buses now to every game, because you can't fit them all on one team coach. The days of a team coach now, going to Wembley for a cup final, there's 2.
Yeah.
If not more. You talked about this, and it's the last thing I want to finish on, and we'll talk about players' careers, and we talked about your bobble, but media talk and impact on players, and it's relevant with Harry Kane in the last week, as he's not had a dig back, but he's given his view back on the insights into what's going on with them now, and pundits will be pundits and have to do their bit, but with social media and with the way that everything is out there. What happened maybe in Baden-Baden, you may tell a story of Baden-Baden, but it might be 2 weeks before it makes the news.
Mate, can
But
you
here
imagine
it's
that
2
bobble
minutes
that I had
later.
against Croatia? I would have got absolutely panned if there was social media at that time. Listen, I got absolutely panned as it was. I had newspaper reporters and journalists stood outside my gates, taking my kids to school, people following me. But with social media now, can you imagine the slobber I'd have got then?
Absolutely. And today's media, and you're part of media now, this is your new role in media. I wouldn't say do you see a sense of guilt, because your job is to report on it. And you have an understanding, and that's why ex-professional footballers and sports people do the role. Is there do you have a bit of empathy or of understanding as to what the England team are in now, if you like? Because
yeah, but you can't dress it up, Dazza. You can't sit there and go. Football fans and people who watch football are very knowledgeable. So there's no point in me sitting there as a pundit in the media saying, first 2 games, they were brilliant. I can see light at the end of the tunnel. They did this well, they did that well. I thought Trent Alexander-Arnold in the midfield was great. Phil Foden on the left wing all worked. You can't. And people are just going to say, you don't know what he's talking about. What are you doing? There's criticism, but there's constructive criticism. In the media and in the press, when it goes to a personal level, that's different. But when you're actually analysing the game, I'm paid now as a journalist, as somebody in the media, and you give your opinion. It's not personal criticism. You critique what you see in front of you, but you don't go too far. You don't go over the line. I'm not foolish enough to sit there and think England have played well. I think by speaking now, we're 3 games into the tournament. We don't know how the tournament's going to pan out. I've watched all 3 games and I don't think they've played well. I don't think there's any type of cohesion. The team hasn't clicked. You can see certain things what could be different. The best thing is everyone's an England manager. Everyone's got an opinion. And we'd all pick a different team. We'd all pick a different shape. We'd all pick a different starting 11. We all have opinions on the manager. But actually, what you're paid to do in the media is to give an honest opinion of what you see. And you can't sit there and say, yeah, that's great, love that, think he's brilliant, because that's not what it is, and that's not what happened to me. But when criticism becomes personal and it goes over the line on social media and it involves family, friends, loved ones, it's too much. You sit on the TV, you're on the radio, and you give your honest analysis of what you see, and that's fair enough, because you're paid a lot of money, you're the very, very best in this country at what you do, so you need to produce on a level, and if you don't, people have their opinions.
It's tough life, though. I know you allude to footballers, but they're only human beings.
Of course.
And quite often they don't really have the right to reply. So Harry did speak out.
You don't have the right to reply. You don't, which is an unfortunate thing. Because as soon as you say something, people say, oh, that's hurt him, or that's got to him, or he can't say that. And we've seen it with footballers reacting to certain criticism. And that's one of my bugbears. A football stadium, the arena, the environment, it seems to give a grown adult the right to be able to shout something at you. So I used to laugh because I used to get loads of dogs abuse when I played. Go and pick the ball up for a goal kick.
Any ground in particular?
Well, yeah, several. I'd go and pick the ball up behind the goal, and then you'd hear somebody giving you a load of slaver. And I pick the ball up, and you look up and you catch somebody's eye, and they just go, and they'd sit down. But the abuse that you'd get, they wouldn't give you that if you walked out past them in the street. No. If they walked past you here right now, they'd say, hello, are you okay?
They want an autograph.
Yeah, or something along those lines. But the football stadium, the environment seems to give, or a false sense that it gives the people the right to shout abuse and everything they want at you. I mean, Arsenal's a perfect example. You know, my strong dislike for there because of the abuse that I've suffered there over the years. And I was at home one Sunday having Sunday lunch with mum and dad, with missus and kids, and Arsenal on the telly. I went, I hope they get beat today. And mum went, oh, it's quite nice there. They always look after us, because they always used to put mum and dad in the bit where they wouldn't get any abuse, get out the way. So mum said, oh, it's always quite nice there. They always look after us. I said to her, you want to know what to say about you behind the goal?
Oh, dear. So it's quite interesting that you talk about the players and they're unright, if you like, or they're unable to reply where criticism is aimed at them. Groundsmanship is very similar. I know I've been called out. I know back in fact Blackburn Rovers 2002, we had a game.
Not that it ever got to you.
Postponed. Not that it ever got to me, no.
Blackburn Rovers 2002 on the 16th of August at 4 o'clock. So,
I can think of one a lot earlier than that, but I care not to mention quite how many years back I go. But I think criticism of pitches and the media's input into that, and social media is very difficult. Groundsmen often will be called out.
well, you have one game. You have one game a week. If you can't get a pitch ready, one game a week. What's wrong with you?
One game a week and a training session, and then an after training session.
Oh, then all these concepts and things you have to deal with.
All these extras. But no, on a serious note, I guess the point I would say is that we as groundsmen, not just in football but in other sports, it's very easy to be critical of the pitch. And I'm not saying you have been. I'm talking generally in terms of sport and the right to reply and what the media has bought. You know, I can look at cricket and see whether it's a test match or a one-dayer, and maybe a team captain.
Or the T20 in Florida in the rainy season. I know, let's play a World Cup in Florida in the rainy season. That's a good idea, isn't it?
Then you get 1 point each because you don't play. I don't want to go into the politics of the rules of games, but I guess it's very difficult to have your reply, and you've spoken there about footballers.
But you can't have a reply, can you? There's no point in you having a reply because nobody listened to start with. And if your pitch is not what you want, you know more than anybody it's not what you want. And if somebody points it out, you just have to, yeah, it is what it is. You get a disease on the grass, or it's a different colour, or somebody says on Match of the Day or Sky, pitch is looking a bit yellow today, and you know that the grass has got a disease, or you know that you're trying to deal with something.
But no one knows the full insight.
But nobody knows the insight, and it's easy just for a keyboard warrior to pick up the phone and just go, "Oh, Tottenham's pitch is crap today. Why is the pitch yellow?" And it gets to you and it hurts you, and people don't realise that the only person that it hurts is the person that it involves. Like the stick that I got after the England game, it stuck with me for years, 2-3 years afterwards. To everybody else, it's forgotten about tomorrow. Nobody else cares. Somebody will say something today and won't even remember they've done it tomorrow or the day after, at the end of the week. It's done, it's forgotten. But when it's criticism like that, because, listen, as I know, it's your pride and joy, isn't it?
Robbo, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for having me.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll see you again soon.